In today's video, I'm going to share with you the top 10 things that helps me to keep my sleep in a very good place consistently after I overcame my insomnia in my late 20s. As a sleep coach, I've been working with clients for 10 years, but a lot of the times I actually end up talking about some of the things that ensures that my sleep is continuously in a good place. And this is especially after I help the client overcome their insomnia already, and we look at future proofing sleep. So, a lot of these things are basically things that I lived through and managed to put in place so that I never had to struggle with insomnia again. But just as a reminder, I now sleep well, but it doesn't mean I don't remember the times when I didn't. I remember the times when I would not be able to fall asleep, often for hours. I would wake up in the middle of the night several times, depending on the night. And in my case, at my worst, my insomnia actually resulted in waking up with bleeding nose in the middle of the night. And in my mid-20s, it was incredibly scary to not know what was wrong with me. You'll have your own version, but I know how it feels not to know either what's wrong with us or why we can't actually sleep well, just like maybe some of our friends or acquaintances. And of course, if I either couldn't fall asleep easily or I woke up a bunch of times, then in the morning I would wake up exhausted on a regular basis. And it was really incredibly hard to even be motivated, to be excited about the day, and to head into the day with that optimism that often we feel when we have a better night's sleep or consistently good sleep every single night. But of course, those challenges didn't just cause issues in the middle of the night, it impacted my daytime. It impacted my ability to socialize with friends, to even feel like I wanted to commit to things. It impacted my ability to focus. It impacted my ability to be able to exercise. And at the worst of my insomnia, I actually ended up putting on quite a bit of weight as well. So it impacted me a lot of different ways. But obviously, naturally, as I've been sleeping so well for so many years now, this conversation only comes up when I talk about how to future proof sleep with clients at the end of our work. So, all of these things I'm going to share with you today are things that not only help me to future proof my sleep, but also helped other clients do the same. So that you never have to, often people call it relapse into not sleeping well again. But a word of warning as always, there are no one thing that will magically fix anything that might be going on. So if you're curious about how to even begin that journey of overcoming your insomnia, then either look at the previous video I recorded, which I looked at in terms of the 10 things that really help as sleep coaching advice for you to begin. That's a really good place to start. Or obviously you can browse at any of the videos that I posted before on different topics, depending on what the challenges that you have within this big topic of sleep or insomnia problems. Now, before we go and go through the 10 things, as always, I wanted to welcome you back if you're part of my community already. Thank you so much for your continuous support as I'm continuing to celebrate 10 years in business and working with clients. And if you're brand new, then welcome. And let me quickly introduce myself. I'm a sleep coach and I work with adults. And I'm also a professional speaker and the creator of the Sleep Skills for Life program, which is very much my way of helping people like you who have struggled with long-term insomnia and sleep problems to finally overcome their challenges and create great quality sleep for many years to come. So if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button below, hit that little bell so I can let you know when I post new videos. And once you watched the video and you liked what I shared with you today, then hit that like button below as well. So now that we covered that, let's really start talking about what has helped me to future-proof my sleep so that it's continuously in a good place and keeps me healthy and overall in really good place during the day. So the very first thing that has really helped me over the years, and remember, I overcame my insomnia in my late 20s, so this has been well over 12 years now since I've been sleeping well, is that I've noticed that my sleep changes quite often seasonally. So my winter is quite different to, let's say, summer, and I live in the UK, so it's not extreme weathers or anything like that. But there is a difference that I see in seasons, and also the difference I see in different life stages. Life stages, I don't mean by just like significant things, but just as I transition and grow as a person and the different aims or goals I have. So life stages aren't just defined by, let's say, getting married or having children, but they defined by significant transitions in life where you either level up or you take on more responsibility or simply go after different goals and aspirations you have. So that's how I define life stages. In my last few years, I also experienced losing my mother and quite a bit of family drama around it. So that's what I mean by life stages. As we develop as a human being and we get older, we do go through different life experiences, but it doesn't have to mean that it's triggering insomnia or sleep problems again. But knowing that sleep changes and knowing that seasonally even it changes, that really allowed me not to think about this idea of perfect sleep. Perfect sleep brings a lot of pressure. So when I look at seasonally my sleep changing, that actually gives me the opportunity to say, well, okay, if it changes, that means change is possible. And this is one of the biggest things that allows me to continue being curious and being interested about sleep and how to even improve mine or tweak things in a way that it can actually be better continuously. The second thing that really works in order to future proof my sleep is remembering that what helped me before still helps me, because this is how I am as a human being. So if you've seen any of my previous videos, I often talk about the fact that I'm very much an analytical type person. I'm a thinker type. I often spend a lot of time in my head because that's the way I am. I'm more introverted as well, where other people might be a different way. So this is what I mean by being who I am as a human being. Now, at the time when I struggled with my insomnia, I very much had those traits that took over my daytime. So, for example, analytical overthinker. I wasn't able to know how to decrease that, which meant that those traits, those human traits, took over a big chunk of my daytime, which meant that they negatively influenced my nighttime as well. When I started improving my sleep and I started learning different tools and techniques that created the results, what I've noticed is that I needed to continue to work with, and I call this rebalancing myself. So if I have a very busy day, let's say working with clients, I am likely to be overactive in my mind because I'm problem solving with clients as a sleep coach pretty much all the time. But the tools that helped me before are still help me. Overactive mind might be different depending on the topic, but it is still overactiveness. So the tools that helped me before, I still use today. Now, I guess the beauty of practicing them for so many years now is often it does not take me as long to practice something in order to get the same outcome. So, for example, in my case, whereas back then I wasn't able to decrease my overactive mind um, very easily, it is much easier now because I've built up that skill set of knowing how to do it in an effective way within a shorter period of time. But it doesn't mean that it's quick or that it's seconds. I still have to spend time working through those tools or techniques, but it just doesn't take me as long as maybe to a new client who's only started practicing something very recently. But that always works for me. If I feel like I'm out of balance in some way and maybe I'm just more in my head and it's really starting to make my, let's say, my mind overactive, I make time to make sure that it does not end up sort of impacting my sleep in a negative way. The third thing that really helps me to keep my sleep in a very good place actually leads back to the previous point, But I wanted to give you this additional one because it is really a very obvious one to me as I'm going through my different life stages. So when I talked about being an over active mind and analytical type person, I'm overall a thinker type, which means I am going to spend time assessing things. What if this and what if that? I spend time a lot of the times exploring different scenarios before I even, let's say, maybe answer a question. It doesn't tend to be my client work, but let's say a life related thing, maybe a direction I want to take, or maybe another course that I might want to enroll into. So, what that means is that because I am a thinker type as a certain personality trait, it then triggers all the previous things that I mentioned in my second point. So, I have to respect that. Thinker types, and this is quite a big chunk of my work in terms of client work, we can't disrespect our mind in a way of feeding it more and more and more and more and more information. If you are a thinker type, you have to create time when you decompressing from feeding your mind with so much information. And that's a very typical problem that I see, where thinker types often have not been able to find appropriate tools and techniques to work with that part of who they are, that trait of overall being a thinker type. And that has been hands down probably one of the most important recognitions in terms of how that related to my sleep problems, how that actually ran away with me at the times when my insomnia was at its worst, and how it showed up in my life when I had certain quite big decisions to make, or things to think about when they actually were something that I really cared about. And you'll see that in your life as well. If you're a thinker type, you sometimes actually have to pause and say, hang on a minute, I do actually need to decompress first. And that's a very good way to not let, the problems start to affect your sleep in different ways across a period of week or a couple of weeks or even months. The fourth thing that really helped me to future proof my great quality sleep is proactiveness. This is what I see with clients quite a lot, where when you are tired and sleep deprived and you're struggling with insomnia, proactiveness is really incredibly difficult because often we don't have the energy to even think about being proactive. But once you overcome your challenges and your sleep stabilizes, just like mine did, proactiveness can really prevent what we would refer to as significant events or triggers to take you back to a place you don't want to be. So, proactiveness means that you start noticing when something is a bit more off. A lot of the times, what I see with clients is sleep problems develop over a period of time, which means it's a cumulative impact. Now, that accumulation doesn't stop just because you have now successfully overcome your sleep problems. So, what I need to always look at in terms of my life is how proactive I am through the different life stages I have so that I can keep myself in a physically, emotionally, and mentally balanced place. And again, this refers back to some of the previous points. But in this point, what I wanted to really, put attention on is that it's the physical, emotional, mental combination. Every single day is different. Sometimes I have a situation when I'm incredibly frustrated about something. That might trigger my mind to go into either problem solving or maybe wanting to make a plan to get out of that situation. It depends on the circumstances. Sometimes I might actually go and do a lot of exercise, and maybe that's quite prominent in spring when I get very excited about being outside. Now, physical tiredness is going to impact everything else. So that's what I mean by really looking at the all three parts of who you are as a human being and really proactively look at what is happening at what stages of your life or what seasons. So again, this refers back to my earlier point of sort of seasonal changes as well. The fifth thing that really helped me to future proof my sleep and the consistently good quality sleep that I have is to really practice what I call sleep skills, but also life skills. So, one of the things I have noticed over the years is life can get in the way of us really taking time to focus on what matters the most. When I look at sleep skills, it's very much a part of who I am now, the way I behave, the way I think, the way I show up in the world or in conversations or any other way you might meet me in different ways. So when I practice my skill sets, it naturally will impact my stability as a human being. And often when we get busy, what happens is that we stop actually looking after ourselves. And it's often referred to being selfish. But I look at selfishness in a very different way and going back to its root. So the word selfish is not a negative thing, but by proactively looking after yourself, and that means your behavior, your mindset, not just what I mentioned earlier in terms of just sort of maybe physically, those skill sets become who you are. They no longer require you to put effort in. This is where you move away from these tools, techniques, or things that you might have put in place from being a chore into being who you are. So when I talk to clients about future-proofing their sleep, I often talk about that. Initially, when we change something or put in a tool or technique or mindset or whatever changes we make with a client, they naturally will start feeling like a chore initially because it is a new thing. So your mind has to embrace it. It has to practice it often enough for it to then be integrated into who you are internally as well. So this is where we move something from a learned experience into that part of the mind which makes them autopilot. So when we look at, or when I look at true sleep skills, they now become who you are. So that means that they're not chores anymore. They're actually the way you conduct yourself on a daily basis. And that's very much what I've seen within my sleep is I have become a different person because I have learned to embrace all of those things that help me, and they have now internalized, which means that they are part of who I am, not separate from me, that I still have to apply on a daily basis. So I hope that makes sense as well. The sixth thing that really helped me over the years to future proof my sleep is to build up my confidence about sleep itself. Initially, when I struggled with insomnia, of course, I was very nervous about it. I had lots of frustrations, lots of doubts about what will help or not help. But once I overcame my sleep problems and insomnia, I really started building on that foundation and creating confidence around sleep. So that means going into a new environment, sleeping in a new place, for example, is no longer something that I struggle with, or maybe looking at really developing certain things in terms of sleep when I actually have something loud around me. So these are what I call sort of practices that build your confidence. So sometimes when we struggle with insomnia, we actually start to not get exposed to so many things because we worry that it's going to influence us in a negative way. And then maybe our sleep will go back to a more troublesome place. But what I always say to clients is never come from a place of fear. When you know how to sleep well, you can transition all those tools, techniques, or behaviors that you already integrated to new environments, to new experiences. So, since I overcame my insomnia, I have gone through different experiences. I traveled internationally, I dealt with jet lag, I slept in different places in terms of busyness, middle of a city, countryside. I exposed myself to different adventures that actually created more and more confidence in my ability to sleep well no matter what happens. So, building that confidence is very simply creating enough memories, positive memories, that counter all the negative memories that you would have had, and just like I had when I struggled. When I struggled with insomnia, all those nights when I struggled are memory cards or memory pieces. And over the years, what happens is when you continue to develop your sleep, you continue to actually really have these different situations and know that you can still sleep well, it rebalances the memory with better experiences, with better memories, or sometimes I refer them as memory cards. And that's what builds your confidence. The more you know that you will be okay in different situations, the more confidence you have in your ability to sleep well, which means that you are there for future proofing your sleep, your good quality sleep. The seventh thing that really helped me to future proof my sleep after overcoming insomnia is to continuously being curious about what's going to help me. Over the years, I haven't stopped learning, but I don't come from uh, a scarcity or a fear-based learning. Once I overcame my insomnia, I really looked at, well, if these things help me to help my sleep to improve, then what else might actually really help me? So over the years, it's almost become a bit of a hobby, but not an analytical or stressful hobby in a way of like, oh my gosh, I have to learn more and more about sleep so that I will never have to struggle. That's not what I mean, but real curiosity, real sort of fun approach of, okay, well, what if I put that in place in my life? How is that going to influence my sleep? Or what if I maybe choose to have a certain experience, just like maybe traveling internationally a number of years ago? How is that going to actually influence my ability to sleep? But never coming from a purposely forcing myself to maybe struggle, but the real curiosity and wonder to really look at what these connections are. So in my methodology, I continuously tweak things. I continuously add things into my work because I'm having different experiences. My sleep is impacted in different way depending on what's going on. As I naturally get older and I go through the life stages, as I mentioned earlier, my sleep continues to change. So I continuously look at different resources and say, well, okay, how can I still continue to add to my skill sets, my ability to be able to calm my mind, my ability to create physical, emotional, and mental relaxation? So it becomes a way where I continue to work with myself, not in an analytical and negative way on a daily basis, thinking it's never enough. So don't come from the never enough place, but come from this, well, the better human I become, that's going to impact my ability to be able to future proof my sleep as well. So that's how I look at it in terms of continuously exploring these things that pop up in a way that it's actually a healthy relationship, not a critical or a judgmental or a lacking relationship between improvement and myself. So I'm sure that that makes sense for you as well. And it really does help to future proof because the more I speak to people, the more I understand what my life might actually bring in the future. The clients I work with actually show me examples of, okay, well, maybe that's going to be interesting how I can go through that maybe when I'm at that age. So it's very much a fun way to approach sleep in a way that it really helps you to future proof things. The eighth thing that really helped me to future proof my sleep is to really honor my boundaries. Life only got busier from the time that I overcame my insomnia. I remember back then we were just starting to have sort of more reliable internet and get exposed to things like social media. And there was not really a social media back then in its most conventional way we see them. So basically, what that means is when I really understand who I am and what I require in order to be able to secure my sleep, I don't let things or people's expectation on me to wiggle that boundary. So a lot of people who gotten to know me over the years know very well that, for example, I don't mind staying up later a bit, but I definitely have a certain cutoff point. because my sleep is more important than just simply honoring someone else's request of me staying out too late. Or I often, within my work as a sleep coach, I often get asked about maybe attending a talk or presenting a talk very early in the morning. I have had podcast requests in the past where it was a different time zone. It would have ended up being in the middle of the night or incredibly early in the morning. And even for the sake of growing my business, I never disrespected my sleep. I never pushed it around with no real reason. Of course, there are times when you are gonna wiggle your sleep around, but do it in a way that is respectful towards the boundaries. Boundaries are really important. I know we talk about them all the time, but practically applying boundaries is really important. Knowing what is going to take away something from you in a form of either relaxation or simply enough time to be able to sleep well and to be able to sleep enough, those are things that we are actually can choose. We are able to choose those things. We can say no to things when they don't really serve this bigger picture of being a healthy person through great quality sleep. And those are definitely the things that I've seen play out in different ways over the years. When I was very excited about taking part in a hobby or an adventure, I'm quite an adventure type, so even traveling, when I plan my traveling, these days I don't actually do any flights that are too early or incredibly late because it's not worth it for me. I'd rather get to, let's say, a holiday in a really good way than sleep deprived way. And I'm sure you know what I mean. Now, obviously, that also means that sometimes we actually balance out, let's say, finances. So if I want to choose a certain flight, then it might cost a little bit more. But for me, that is part of that experience, not shortcutting something so that the first day, let's say, on my holiday is already not as great because I'm now sleep deprived. And that's not really how I want to live my life and experience those adventures that, let's say, I booked for myself. So I think this gives you a really good idea in terms of just figuring out what your boundaries are and not letting life push those things around. This is one of the things that I really see with clients, especially as we begin working on their sleep, is how much demands we have on our life and our time from so many different places. And as our life has gotten busier, it has become a bit harder for us to really understand what boundaries we even want to keep. But it is definitely a way to future proof your sleep, especially once you overcame your long term insomnia and sleep problems. Number 9 on the list of things that really helped me future proof my sleep is all about how I start my day. A lot of the times when we wake up in the morning, we almost get onto an autopilot behavior. We let life unfold in a way that we just kind of responding to things as they come along. One of the things I've really seen, and this is maybe more special sort of for me, is that if I let the first half an hour of my day unfold in a way that it's not helping me to start the day well, it actually starts impacting everything. And it impacts my day in a negative way. And I have seen this at the beginning of my time when I overcame my insomnia, but actually had a few struggles every so often. This was many years ago now. But I seen that when I didn't start my day well, it really affected the rest of it. The morning has such a big significance. How we head into the day, how refreshed we feel, how we look at our emotions, how we're able to actually inspire us to look forward to the day has a lot of influence on how the rest of the day will actually pan out. And I'll give you a very practical example with this one because this is quite common in the UK. So often in the UK, especially the winter, can be quite grey or quite rainy. But when I started really noticing how the first half an hour of my day was different on certain days, like a very incredibly rainy and grey and perhaps miserable day, and then how it impacted me during the day and how actually it impacted me towards my night, I started noticing how important is it for me to set the foundations of the day regardless of external influences. So the morning, you might call it routine, is not just about dealing with the external world. It's actually more about setting yourself up first internally. And this is what I say to clients, not to start consuming too many things first. When you really actually spend a little bit of time with yourself, looking after yourself, really getting yourself going in the morning before you start feeding information, it reminds your body and your mind to the fact that you matter and your health matters. Now, intellectually, you might know that, but often the practices that might end up running away with us actually counter that. But we're in charge of it. If you spend the first, it can even be 20 minutes of your day to really just set yourself up, and I call this easing into the day in a very good way, then it helps you to get through the day in a very different way, and it also will influence your evening in a positive way. And that's really what I've seen with myself. I really protect the first half an hour of my day. I often don't even turn my phone on because I want to make sure that I am ready to actually face the world in so many different ways, whether or that's things coming in or people wanting things from me. So I think really that's a very great way to set yourself up to continuing to be in a very good place for many, many years to come, sleep as well as otherwise. The last piece of the 10 things that really helped me over the years to stabilize my sleep and help me to have really good quality sleep consistently is that I actually review things every 6 months' time. Sometimes in the earlier years, it was more like 3 months' time, but it's now become a bit longer because I've actually practiced it for so many years now. And I say this to clients as well. When we finish working on overcoming sleep problems and insomnia, it doesn't mean that change will not come along. So, reviewing your process and only planning to work on something for a period of time that works for you is a really great way to enable yourself to continue moving forward in a positive way and to keep yourself stable as well, physically, emotionally, and mentally. Even when I begin working with a client, I asked them this question about how stable do you feel your life is going to be in the next sort of 3 months? This is not about making a plan of what you're going to achieve or writing a list of things that you want to focus on. It's actually really looking at stability, so life's stability. So, for example, a couple of years ago, I had quite a big move, which meant that naturally every part of my life was going to change. You know, my social circle is going to change. The way I worked was going to change. The kind of things I might do was going to change. Packing up an apartment and moving, packing up all my things and moving. And again, when you have ever moved, you know how long it takes. It actually takes a lot of time to prepare and a lot of time to even settle into a new life or new stage of life. So when you review ahead of time, you actually become, and again, I mentioned proactiveness earlier, you actually become much more aware of what might actually cause either negative influences or positive influences. This is quite common when you either start a new relationship or really life stages. So I see this with clients all the time. When their life stage changes, suddenly their sleep responds to it. But often it's not quote unquote suddenly, it's just that they weren't aware that it was starting to impact them. So when you really look at, okay, so what can I in a way expect in the next 6 months? But this is not about sort of what if listing every single thing that can go wrong or right. Is just really looking at what are the kind of things that are moving around in your life. What are the changes that you're seeing that are maybe something you need to address or actually just let them settle down. And those things really, again, help me to continue to understand how I respond to these things as a human being, but without it, in fact, impacting my sleep. So, this idea of prevention is very much part of working with who you are, all the things that are changing around you, but embracing them in a positive and in a way, prepared way. Even if something happens that's a one off and unexpected, if every other area of your life is more stable because you were more prepared, then those events don't impact you so negatively. And this is one of the things I've seen, especially around the time when my mom became unwell. It was a huge shock for everyone, but I had all the parts of my life mostly organized, so this one didn't feel like it was such a massive thing because every other area of my life was more settled. And I'm sure that this will make sense to you as you are looking at how you can actually really enjoy great quality sleep for many years to come. We can actually be a lot more proactive in our life than what we often can feel like we're able to. And those things really help us to be physically, emotionally, mentally more relaxed, more calm, more stable. So, therefore, it can support us in any 24-hour period in a better way. So, these are all the things that I wanted to share with you today and how I actually future proofed my sleep. And a lot of these things are either skill sets that I developed, hence Sleep Skills for Life, that I teach my clients, or just really working with who I am and really truly understanding who I am rather than just maybe other people saying what they feel I need to do in my life. So these kind of self-awareness pieces are really important. We know ourselves way more than anybody else knows us. So let's really work on yourself with yourself in a better way. And that's really a biggest thing that I've seen in my life through all these 10 different things that I mentioned today. So I hope that this video has actually really inspired you to look at your future and future proofing your sleep in a much more positive way, even if you currently still struggle with either some sleep problems or maybe more significant ones. It's completely possible to overcome long-term insomnia and sleep problems, just like I did. There is nothing very special about me and why I could. It's that I put the work in and I really understood what I needed to put in place in order to make that positive influence. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button below, hit that little bell as well so I can let you know when I post new videos. And if you have liked what I share with you today, then don't forget to use that like button below as well. That really is a way for me to know what kind of things you might be interested in, so I can record more content around those things for you. So I'm looking forward to continuing our conversation, talking about different things in relation to insomnia and sleep problems. So I see you in the next video.